your Zoom. So if you go to the bottom of your Zoom page, you should be able to see an interpretation icon. So if you select English or Russian, you will then hear the translation in your preferred language. Okay, I think we can get started. So welcome everybody. This is the 5th webinar in our UK-Russia series as a collaboration between the UK Polar Network and Apex Russia. So we welcome you here today. Today we're going to be discussing navigating fieldwork in the Arctic, and we have 2 speakers, one from Russia and one from the UK, both graduate students who can talk about their field experiences in Arctic fieldwork. So I'll just say again, if you would like interpretation, if you'd like to choose a preferred language, to go to the bottom of your Zoom page, you just need to select the interpretation icon and then choose English or Russian, as you prefer. Okay, so I think that's everything from me. I will now introduce our first speaker. Our first speaker is Ben Boys from the University of Brighton, and Ben studies glaciology and paleogeomorphology. Ben, would you like to speak? Thank you. Over to you.
Can you see that okay?
Perfect.
Brilliant. Okay, so today I sort of just wanted to share some of my experiences of working in the Russian Arctic and provide some tips that I wish I had when I started fieldwork in the region. And I hope that these tips are relevant not only to UK scientists, but also to Russian scientists as well. But first, I'll just briefly introduce what I do, what my research is, and therefore why I work in the Russian Arctic. For my PhD, I've been researching the glacial history of the Kola Peninsula and Russian Lapland, which is just up here in northwest Arctic Russia. And this region was glaciated by the Fennoscandian ice sheet between 40 and 10,000 years ago. But our understanding of glaciation in this region is quite uncertain. And this uncertainty is a result of historically limited communication between Russian and non-Russian scientists, restricted access to what's already a very remote region, and low resolution empirical data for the whole region. If you are interested in finding out more about our current knowledge of the region, this paper here provides quite a good review of that. For my work, though, I'm interested in 2 aspects. So first is comprehensively mapping the glacial geomorphological landform record of the region so that I can reconstruct the dynamics of the last ice sheet. And second, to numerically date some glacial landforms and sediments so we know when various events happened. So I've therefore got 2 fieldwork needs: access to the landscape to describe and map glacial landforms, and access to specific sedimentary exposures to be able to collect samples for numerical dating. I carried out 5 weeks of fieldwork in summer of 2019, sometimes as part of a UK-only group, but most of the time as part of a UK-Russia collaboration with some colleagues from the Kola Science Centre of the Russian Academy of Sciences. Collaboration with a local research group is very important as they have the knowledge and the contacts to make fieldwork as successful as possible. And a lot of what I'll discuss today, I didn't know when I first planned and went on fieldwork in 2019, but I would have found it very useful if this information had been available or clearly communicated to me at the time. So I hope someone listening will find this quite useful. So first, organising fieldwork. I would highly recommend looking at the Interact website, this webpage here. They have a fantastic resource that clearly outlines some of the permits and regulations for fieldwork in the Arctic, not just for Russia, but for all the different countries in the Arctic too. I do wish this resource was available when I first did fieldwork. However, organising fieldwork, particularly in the Russian Arctic, very much relies on assistance from local collaborators in Russia. There's only so much that can be organised from a UK institution, and local Russian colleagues have the knowledge and contacts for accessible field locations, arranging permits, and can also provide you with some scientific equipment so you can use it in the field. You do need to clearly communicate with all members of the research group what you want to do and achieve while on fieldwork, and what you might need when you're on fieldwork. When I arranged fieldwork, I communicated what I had planned to do and the dates that the UK scientists would be in Russia, but perhaps limited communication in the other direction or a misunderstanding with a language barrier from our Russian colleagues meant that some of the plans had to be changed quite a bit when we arrived in the field, which is unnecessarily stressful and meant that what our limited time in the field was quite a bit reduced. Permits are needed for conducting research in Russia, and the amount and types depend on the geographical area you want to go to and the type of research you want to conduct. So this picture here is similar to a road sign that I came across while I was working in Russia. And simply put, the Arctic region in Russia is a border zone, and you need permits to access many areas of the Russian Arctic. You might also need similar permits to access, for example, national parks or nature reserves, and other permits you might need include for sample collection, carrying and using certain types of scientific equipment, and also for importing and exporting scientific equipment and samples. As I understand, there is no central point for relevant information for all the different types of research permits you might need in Russia. So scientists have to identify all the relevant permits themselves and then obtain these permits from the relevant authorities. But this can only be achieved with assistance from Russian collaborators who can help identify and obtain the relevant permits that you need for conducting your research. A word of caution, though, applying for permits does take a very long time. So, for example, it took us over a year to obtain a permit just to export some geological samples that we collected in the summer of 2019. When in the field, you will notice that health and safety regulations between the two countries are very different. And this picture quite nicely sums it up for me. So here we are coring a lake for some radiocarbon samples, and you'll notice that we're not wearing any sort of safety gear, any life jackets and so on. These aren't required in Russia, weren't required by the Russian institution, but in the UK it would be very different. We have to wear safety gear at all times when working on or around water. So my advice would be to be open-minded and flexible in how you operate in the field. Of course, though, you need to discuss with everyone before entering the field the various safety regulations and equipment that you want and need to follow so that all participants of fieldwork are ready to follow the same procedures when in the field. Navigation in the Russian Arctic is dictated by its remoteness. Don't rely on technology. I think that's a given. But for large areas of the Russian Arctic, you won't have phone signal or even perhaps access to electricity. You'll also find that seemingly random places are off limits to scientists and that permits are needed for many more areas, as I've sort of already mentioned. But if you have scientific collaborators, they will be able to help you when navigating to identify the areas you can go and help you with permits to access other areas too. Maps is always an interesting one. I've heard lots of rumors about whether you can get hold of maps in Russia. There are maps available. However, as I understand it, Russian mapping that's similar to the UK's Ordnance Survey maps are unavailable to international visitors. But you can get tourist maps like this one here. They provide quite an adequate alternative and they're available to buy in bookshops, for example. If you do need assistance, if you're driving, for example, there are various phone apps now where you can download these road maps for using offline. So they're quite useful too. One aspect that I have mentioned quite a bit already is communication. Communication is key for successful fieldwork in Russia. However, that's not to say that you won't have difficulties when communicating as part of a collaboration. And the obvious barrier is language. Before the field, it is easy just to translate your emails in Google Translate. There'll be a few mistakes with that, but it's easy enough. When you're in the field, though, that isn't as easy. There are now apps, a bit like Google Translate, that can transcribe speech, and that makes things a lot easier. But I would recommend trying to learn some of your collaborators' language and some of the local languages. Don't worry if you're not fluent in the various languages. You will pick up words and phrases while you're in the field, and you will adapt to finding ways of communicating with a mix of two languages. So when I first went into the field in Russia, I couldn't speak much Russian, if at all, but by the end of the 5 weeks, I'd picked up a few phrases. My colleagues had also picked up some phrases, and we could get by quite easily. So from my field experience of working in Russia, my tips are to use the Interact website for the initial information and guidance, establish a collaboration with a local research group and organisation. If you do need help with that, you can get in touch with organisations like Interact, APEX, the UK Polar Network, or even the UK Science and Innovation Network. Clearly communicate with each other at all stages of planning, whilst planning and when in the field. Preparation and patience with your preparation is key for success. Try and learn some of the local language, but I think most importantly, just have fun with your collaboration. And then I'll finish today just by thanking my collaborators here in this picture. There's Vasily, Andrei, Olga, Dima, also Yulia, and everyone else who's helped me along the way. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. That was really interesting to hear your experience, and it sounds like you had an amazing opportunity that you took up there. If anyone has any questions, please do just unmute and go for it, or write your questions in the chat. I'm sure Ben will be happy to answer them. I did have one question for you, Ben. You mentioned it took over a year for you to get a permit for exporting your samples. So I just wanted to know, was that, did you have that permit when you went to your fieldwork, or was that after your fieldwork that you gained the permit and then were able to ship them back? How did that work?
Yeah, we started before we went on field work, I think in sort of January, February, which was a few months before I entered the field. But I think it was one of those situations where we needed to have the samples to be able to say exactly what we were trying to ship, and therefore apply for a permit. And in the end, yeah, it took well over a year after fieldwork. I think COVID disrupted that slightly, but even without COVID, it would have taken quite a long time.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and these were kind of standard sediment samples, nothing too scary or anything. It was.
Yeah, I think so. I think we also had a bit of restriction in that geological samples are considered, I think, national treasures in Russia. So exporting geological samples is quite difficult anyway. So that sort of adds another layer of complexity.
Mm. It's good to know, though, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It's really handy.
Yeah, thank you. Yulia.
Спасибо большое, Бен.
Thank you very much, Ben. I enjoyed your presentation very much, and I remember your field trip to our station. In fact, you can consider yourself lucky because you had to deal with geological samples, while biological samples require even longer times to get all the permits for the export, and it's even worse. So geological, that's easy. Biological, harder. I wanted to ask you a question. Since the Russian Arctic is rather industrial and is industrialized, and you find there a lot of different actors, a lot of industrial facilities in particular, and they're all fenced, basically. They do have their area of operation. In Murmansk region, in that part where you were during your research, again, you find a lot of industry, heavy industry there. So my question is, Did it ever happen to you when you needed access to a particular place, but you couldn't access it because it was occupied by an industrial facility?
Yeah, thanks, Julia. Just in case anyone didn't get it, Julia's basically asking, industry is quite a big thing in the Arctic, particularly in the region where I work. And this is one of those situations where I sort of mentioned that seemingly random places are off limits to scientists. And I did come across that. One day we chose a field site, tried to drive there, only to find there was a roadblock in place and we couldn't get to where we wanted. I think it's one of those situations you'll come across quite a lot in Russia. So you do just sort of need to try different things like we did and just see if you can get somewhere, but also ask your collaborators and they will hopefully be able to help you.
Thanks, Ben. Do we have any other questions from the floor for Ben? I just had one final question, Ben. I just was interested where you were staying when you were doing fieldwork. Were you on station and did you camp out at all or stay out in the field overnight?
Yeah, I had a mix of everything. I was based at the Chybiny research station for 5 weeks, but we had several weeks camping in the field as well. Did a bit of everything.
Oh, that must have been amazing.
It was good fun, yeah. Very interesting.
I'm sure everyone is very envious of your experience. Alexei, did you have something? Yes, Alexei.
Yeah, I just wanted to specify how long was the whole period of your research stay in Russia?
I was there for 5 weeks.
5 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Did you have some free time to enjoy Kirovsk and other cities in Murmansk region?
Yeah. I was lucky enough that I went on the Arctis field course was it February of that year? So I'd got to know the area a little bit. So I already knew some of the places to go, museums to visit and so on. So during some of my free time, I got to explore a little bit more, which was very nice.
Yeah, great.
Wonderful. Okay, I think we will move on to our second speaker then, Alexei. So we welcome Alexei Kishankov from Gubkin University, and the floor is yours. Thank you.
Yes, thanks. Just a second. Do you see my screen?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, all right. Thank you for introducing. My name is Alexei Kishankov. I'm from Gubkin University and also from Oil and Gas Research Institute of Russian Academy of Sciences. I'm going to tell you about my experience of marine expeditions in the Arctic. They have some peculiarity, some features compared to onshore expeditions, such as Ben just described. So just a few words about my field of research. I'm a petroleum geologist, and yeah, Yulia, you want to ask something?
Алексей, вы можете развернуть на полный экран?
Alexei, we aren't seeing your slides full screen. We are looking at the layout.
Sorry.
Thanks.
Are they changing now?
No, Alexei, we can only see your PowerPoint as slides, not as full screen. You have it on the other screen, maybe.
Does it look like a slide or PowerPoint?
It's just the PowerPoint at the moment.
So what should I do?
Well, we can see your slides, Alexei, so you could just keep them as they are and scroll through them instead of going into presenter view.
Just a second. I'll try once again. Maybe I'll fix it.
If that doesn't work, if you zoom in a little bit on each individual slide, that would probably be fine.
Is it changing now? No?
No, I'm afraid we can see your documents folder.
I don't know what to do.
Do you have two screens? Alexei, is this why?
All right. In this way, is this changing?
We can just see your document folder.
Document folder, sorry.
I'm sure we can get it to work, don't worry. Okay, we can see the PowerPoint now.
Now slides are changing.
They are, yeah. Yeah.
I don't know why it is happening, so I will do in this mode.
No problem.
So some few words about my field of research. I'm a petroleum geologist, and my field of study is distribution of free gas and gas hydrates in the upper part of sedimentary cover in the Arctic offshore areas. Why is it important? First of all, small shallow gas accumulations indicate possible locations of large hydrocarbon fields, which could be discovered on greater depths. Also, some question of safety of drilling, because shallow gas saturated sediments pose danger during exploratory drilling for discovering of petroleum fields. And the third aspect is ecological. Shallow gas can play an important role in climate change on the Earth, because when gas is emitted into the water column and further to the atmosphere, the methane, which is the main component of hydrocarbon gas, can change the balance of gases in atmosphere and result in global warming. Being involved in this research sphere, I had an opportunity during my PhD studies to come as a guest researcher to the Center for Arctic Gas Hydrate Environment and Climate, which is located in the University of Tromsø in Norway. This center specializes in this question, distribution of gas and gas hydrates in shallow subsurface in upper part of sedimentary cover, and its impacts on the environment and climate and other areas. I had an opportunity to participate in 2 short expeditions organized by this center. They took place in the Sea of Greenland, offshore Svalbard, and in the northern part of the Barents Sea. So these areas are marked with red rectangles on this map. And the objective of these expeditions was studying distribution of free gas and gas hydrates in the upper part of sedimentary cover based on some geophysical and geological methods. Also, I'd like to mention I mentioned this term gas hydrates. Just want to specify what it is. Gas hydrates are solid compounds which are formed by gas and water in specific thermobaric conditions, in high pressures and low temperatures. This is how they look like in the left figure. This is how they look like in nature. And in the right picture, this is how they are organized chemically. So let's go further. Now, briefly about the works which were conducted during the expeditions. The work included 2D seismic survey, multi-beam echo sounding, some oceanographic measurements, water sampling, and bottom sediment sampling. In the left picture, you can see the way how seismic survey is conducted offshore. You can see the ship with some guns. The acoustic waves are emitted from these guns to the water and further to the sedimentary cover. And when these waves go back to receivers, after some processing, the important information can be obtained about geological structure of the sedimentary cover, and also about the content, sometimes also about the content of gas and gas hydrates in sediments. Also about another method, multi-beam echo sounding. It also works with the acoustic waves. It allows mapping the seafloor, studying some features like mounds or craters and some other things. And also it allows detecting special anomalies which are called gas flares. These anomalies indicate gas leakage from the seafloor. If gas is not accumulated, if it is not trapped in the sedimentary cover, it can release through the seafloor, and it can be seen by special anomalies. And in this picture on the right, you can see the combination of results of multi-beam echo sounding and the seismic survey. So we can see the mapped seafloor with anomalies of gas flares, and we can see the 2D seismic section, which illustrates the structure of sedimentary cover. All right, and these were some scientific point of the expeditions, the methods, and now some practical features which are typical for marine expeditions. So these methods, seismic survey and multi-beam echo sounding, they were conducted continuously, regardless if it was day or night. If it is quite logical, because the ship can't just stop all the work for the night, so everybody could have rests, could have some sleep, and then start new day with the continuation of working. It's impossible, and this is why it's a usual thing for the ships, that the work is organized in shifts. This is usual for ships in Norway, in Russia, and everywhere in the world. In my expeditions, the work was organized in 2 shifts. Each shift included 6 hours work, and then 6 hours rest, and then again 6 hours work, 6 hours rest. So every day you work obligatory for 12 hours, but it doesn't mean that all the rest time is for your rest or for your sleep, because some questions may rise where your help might be needed. So you should stick not only to your timetable, but also to the situations which are happening during the cruise. At first, it may look like very uncomfortable working in such regime, 6 hours work, 6 hours rest, when we know that we normally should sleep at night, preferably for 8 hours, and then work during the day. But I can say that when you start working in such regime, you get used to it, and it becomes normal to you. Yes, and when the expeditions finish, it's unusual to come back to your normal regime. The second very important issue is that the work was conducted in a multinational team. Well, as I mentioned, I was a guest researcher in the Center of Gas Hydrate Environment and Climate in Tromsø, Norway. And although it is located in Norway, many researchers there are foreigners. And this means that the work, also including the expeditions, are held in multinational teams. And I also was, during these expeditions, I had a chance to be a member of such a multinational team. It is a great experience because apart from getting work experience, new skills, new knowledge in your research sphere, you also get acquainted with features of different cultures because you have to speak with people from different nationalities. You tell them something about your country, your customs and traditions. You hear something about their cultures, and it is a great experience. You learn a lot. Yeah, and the necessary thing that I can mention about in working in scientific sphere in staying for the research in Norway is that there is absolutely no language barrier. If you can speak English and you will not have any problems with scientific work in Norway. As I mentioned, in the center where I had a research stay, there are a lot of foreigners, and English is the main language of communication. I know that this problem exists in Russia when not all people can speak English. I hope that someday we will also not have such a problem. Next thing, that working on a ship means that you stay for a period in a closed space with a limited number of people. And it is a good point because you get to know with people, you get together with people very well. You know each other very well. You stay in one company. You have a lot of common topics for communication, both in the research sphere, also some common informal communication, some jokes may happen, and it is very pleasant for setting a good relationship, especially for further international scientific collaboration. Also, it is necessary to mention that staying on a ship requires always being polite and helpful, because some questions, some difficulties can happen there, which should be solved together. For example, there is some work with heavy equipment when the help is needed. You can ask help of other people. You also should offer your help when you see somebody needs it. It also a great factor for setting a good relationship in the company during the research cruise. The last but a very important point is that the health issues are very important during the research cruise. Because, as I mentioned, you're staying in the isolated space. If something happens to you, it is your responsibility to save yourself. Of course, there is a person who is responsible for keeping some medicine on the ship, for dealing with some emergent situations. But if you know that you have some health issues, you should prepare for this. You should take some medicine which you need to take during the cruise. Of course, you should be generally healthy because if anything happens, no serious help might be expected during the cruise. And one thing, even if you are healthy, if you are strong, the unexpected thing which can happen to everybody is the seasickness during the heavy storms, even if they are not heavy actually, but they are continuous. You can start feeling seasickness, which is very, very uncomfortable, and it may happen in a very unexpected moment. It's very unpleasant because when you feel it, you don't want to do anything. You want just lay down and have some rest. And you should prepare for this. As some my colleagues told me that you should take some medicine, some tablets in advance to avoid seasickness. So you should know your health if you are sensitive for this seasickness, and if it is, you should take some special pills in advance. Yeah, that's all which I wanted to tell you. As from my experience, I can tell that it was very positive. During my expeditions, I had a great opportunity of professional growth in my research sphere, and I also could set a great relationship with the researchers from this Norwegian institution, and we continue working, although distantly, during this pandemic. But nevertheless, we had an opportunity to have some productive collaboration, and even we could publish an article on this research sphere, which is connected to hydrocarbon and gas leakage in the shallow subsurface. This is all. I will be happy to answer your questions if you have some.
Thank you, Alexei, and thank you for that interesting presentation on your marine field work. It's nice to have the terrestrial aspect from Ben and then go to the marine aspect with you, Alexei. It sounds like you had a wonderful experience. If anyone has any questions, please raise your hand or put your question in the chat and go for it. Thank you. And I'm also really sorry, Alexei, about the interruptions during your presentation. You did very well.
Yeah, and I'm also sorry for these technical issues. I don't know why it's happened.
No worries. I'm sure we all saw your slides fine. It looked fine to me. The content was what was important, and that was great. So I do have one question. I was wondering how you found the opportunity to collaborate with the Norway Institute, and how you managed to make that collaboration. Was that through your PhD course, or how did you find that?
Yeah, it was during my PhD course. Yes, I had some information about this center, and one time I had an opportunity to visit Tromsø for one conference, actually the Arctic Frontiers Conference. And during this event, I had an opportunity to contact with the representatives of this center, to have some communication, to introduce myself, to tell what I'm doing in my institution, and we tried to build some cooperation. And this resulted in this opportunity that they could accept me for the research stay, and it was very productive for me and for both of us, as it finally could result in collective paper, and hopefully we will continue our work together.
Fantastic. Sounds like you were quite proactive in your approach and sought out the collaborations, which is a good, confident thing to do. And that's why we have in-person conferences as well. I'm sure we're all looking forward to the return of those, so that we can speak to those people we might be able to collaborate with. Ben, do you have a question?
Thanks very much, Alexei. Interesting talk. I'm just interested, how long are you actually on these cruises for? Are you there for, is it a few days or is it several weeks? How long is it?
In total it was about a month, but actually officially it was the experience consisted of 2 short expeditions, which just were held one by one. So one expedition for some days, and another also for just a bit longer, for 2 weeks. And in total it was about a month of experience on a cruise.
Alexei, what time of year were you there? Was it summer or winter? How was the?
Yes, it was summer. It was. I wouldn't say it was very warm, but quite warm for the Arctic conditions. We also could experience the polar day, which is very helpful for work during the night.
Yes, I have actually been on fieldwork to the Barents Sea as well. So yeah, I also experienced that polar day, and it's very helpful when you are working the night shift.
In which area did you go?
The Barents Sea, near to Svalbard. We were doing, it was a Chaos cruise, so it was Changing Arctic Ocean, which is a big UK project on the wider Arctic changes as a whole, and we were looking at water column nutrients and chemistry, biogeochemistry.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, it was great. It was my first expedition. It was it's really good. Does anyone else have any questions? I think we have one in the chat, maybe from Yulia. Did you have a chance to relax at all? Ben could go somewhere to relax, but I guess you were on the ship the whole time.
This wasn't my purpose to relax there, because everything was interesting for me, and I tried to do as much as possible. And even when my shift was over, I tried to continue work to help somebody, because yes, it was extremely interesting. I just thought that I could have some rest after I come home and everything is finished. But there on the cruise, I tried to work as much as possible. But yeah, there were some moments when I just couldn't do anything. I just needed to fall and sleep for some time.
Yes, it's taking that opportunity when you're there. It's very, when you're passionate about what you're doing, it's very easy to kind of work all the time, especially if you know it's only a few days more or whatever. Yeah, it's amazing how our bodies can power us through. And then I always find after field work, I sleep constantly for about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Any more questions?
Yeah.
Yes, Priya?
Спасибо большое, очень интересная.
Thank you very much. It was a lovely presentation and a very interesting conversation. I would like to ask our wonderful speakers to perhaps summarize a little bit what is the key message, like what's the main takeaway from your experience. You've discussed very different experiences, very different expeditions, but what sticks with me is health issues, health management. In the Soviet times, there was this famous surgeon who went to the Antarctic, and he, being a surgeon himself, he had to operate on himself. He removed an appendix to himself out there in the snows, basically. So obviously, now there are doctors present at various research stations in order to avoid such predicaments in the future. But Arctic, Antarctic expeditions, the conditions there are very severe. So what was the biggest recommendation? Was the one piece of advice that you can give to those people who have never been on a field trip before? Thanks.
I think my take-home message is, I think communication and preparation. Yeah, I sort of ended up with fieldwork was great and we got a lot done, but there was a lot that wasn't done or opportunities missed because perhaps there wasn't the communication beforehand and when we were in the field that meant it could have been as successful as it could have been. So I think anyone that's planning fieldwork should really make sure that everyone understands what is being communicated as well, and make sure you've got a really good plan before you enter the field, so that when you're in the field, everything is a success.
Yeah, and I also can agree with the thing that preparation is very important. You need to set some good communication with the people with which you are going on the expedition. And concerning the health issues, yeah, as I told you in my presentation, it is very important because you should be prepared. You should understand that you will stay in isolated space, and you should take everything which you need. And officially, before going on a cruise, you need to provide the document which states that you're healthy, and this is common both for Norway, for Russia, and I think for other countries of the world. I'm sorry, just a second. Yeah. I'm sorry, my computer just was losing the charge. Yeah, and yeah, this is required to have some medical document, because even if you are sure that you are healthy, the people who organize the cruise, they need some documentation that that you are really healthy. The documentation from doctors. Yeah, but also you should understand your own issues which can happen during the cruise, even if you are healthy enough.
Thank you, Alexei. Thank you both. Yeah, I guess the big takeaway message, therefore, is be prepared. Be prepared and prepare in advance, and know what you'll need ahead of time. Great. Well, thank you so much to both our speakers. That was a really interesting talk from both of you and a great discussion. Really nice to hear both your perspectives, which were both quite different, but came together to say the same thing in some ways. So yeah, thank you. And thanks to our participants as well. I hope you've enjoyed today's webinar. We will be having another webinar next week on navigating the Arctic after the field. So how to get the most out of your fieldwork post fieldwork. So maintaining those collaborations, perhaps shipping those samples, getting the permits and getting those samples back to the lab, and that sort of thing. So we hope we will be putting out an advert for that to let you know when that will be very soon. And we hope to see you there. So, and lastly, thanks to our translator as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.